Mercury is the closest planet to the Sun. Because it is so close to the Sun, it's very hard to see from Earth. It's the smallest planet in our solar system. Surprisingly, it is not the hottest planet in our solar system. It has almost no atmosphere. The scorching heat from the Sun during the Mercurian day is only cooled off by the super freezing cold at night as the planet turns. This results in an extreme variation on the surface temperature of Mercury. Also, there are regions that never see the heat from the Sun. They're in the polar caps. Did you know that Mercury has wrinkles? It's because the planet is actually shrinking, and these wrinkles can be hundreds of kilometers long. The planet Mercury turns very slowly. A day on Mercury takes 59 Earth days. But amazingly, Mercury circles the Sun in only 88 days. Venus is the second planet from the Sun. It's quite similar to the Earth in size, but only a little smaller. It is a rocky planet that lost its water a long time ago. It is really unfriendly for humans. It has an extreme greenhouse effect in its atmosphere, with huge amounts of carbon dioxide, and that makes the heat stay close to the planet. It makes this planet the hottest in the solar system. It's not only the temperature that makes living on Venus unbearable for humans. The air pressure on Venus is the same as going a kilometer underneath the ocean, crushing depths. Not to mention the extreme corrosive acid rain from the surrounding clouds. Another really mind-boggling fact is that even though Venus orbits around the Sun in 224 Earth days, it spins on its own axis every 243 Earth days, making a Venetian day a little longer than a Venetian year. Venus is the brightest planet we can see in our solar system from Earth. We can even see it during the daylight. So keep your eyes peeled the next time you're out looking up into the sky for the planet Venus.
Earth is the third planet from our Sun. It's also the only planet in our solar system known to have life. We have relatively mild temperatures and lots of water, and that's thanks mostly to our perfect distance from the Sun. More than 70% of Earth's surface is covered with water, and that's where life started 4 billion years ago. Earth's atmosphere does a lot of great things for us. It protects us from dangerous space radiation, contains oxygen to breathe, and it keeps the right amount of heat close to the surface. All the heat we have on the Earth comes from our Sun, and that's a big heater. By comparison, if the Sun was the size of your front door, then the Earth would just be the size of a nickel. That's why it's so important to be the right distance from the Sun. We're protected from the Sun's winds by Earth's powerful magnetic field. That's the same magnetic field that makes your compass work. Did you know Earth is actually tilted? We're flying through space slightly sideways. This causes our 4 seasons. There's more sunlight and heat during the summer and less during the winter. And the closer you get to the poles, the bigger the difference.
International Space Station, or the ISS, is our laboratory and observatory in space. It's been continuously occupied since November of 2000, usually by a crew of 6, and it's been visited by more than 200 people, including me, and a variety of international and commercial spacecraft. People have stepped outside its hatches on more than 100 spacewalks. The station rotates around the Earth in a low orbit, so it's a satellite because it orbits and revolves around another object. The ISS can even be seen from the Earth with the naked eye. It's the size of an American football field. It weighs as much as 63 elephants, and it gets its power from huge solar panels. Its flight path has been carefully designed so that it keeps the same distance to the Earth, and it doesn't need energy for moving forward around the Earth. It's high enough that there's no air and very little drag to slow it down, and it's close enough that the Earth's gravitational pull keeps it from floating off into space. The ISS circles the Earth at 5 miles every second, which means that it goes around the Earth in 90 minutes, 16 times a day.
The moon is the second brightest object that we see from space. It is also the only place in space where humans have landed. That took place in 1969, when Neil Armstrong was the first person to walk on the moon. But the moon has been important to us down through the Earth's history. Its gravity actually has an impact on us every day because it causes the tides in our oceans. The moon is basically a big piece of rock circling the Earth. It orbits us synchronously, which means that it always has one side facing us. The other side of the moon we call the far side. The moon has virtually no atmosphere, so it's not protected from asteroids and radiation. There are a lot of craters on the moon, as over millions of years, asteroids have been hitting the surface. The moon indeed has had a tough life and is constantly being hit even today. When on the moon, an adult weighs as much as a 3-year-old child here on Earth. And you can't hear a sound since there is so little atmosphere.
The fourth planet in the solar system is the red one, Mars. It is actually the second smallest planet after Mercury. From Mars, the sun appears about half the size as it does on Earth. It's called the red planet because the Martian rocks and surface have a lot of iron oxide, giving the planet its rusty color. It has only about 1/3 of Earth's gravity, meaning that an astronaut could jump 3 times higher than on Earth. Mars has 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos, which unlike our round moon at Earth, Mars's moons are more like huge rock potatoes. There are currently 7 man-made spacecrafts on and around Mars. 5 are orbiting around the planet, and there are 2 rovers working hard on the surface. Because of these spacecrafts, it is the planet we know most about after Earth. Mars also has the highest mountain of all the planets. Its name is Olympus Mons, and it can rise up to 21 kilometers from the surface, 3 times taller than Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on Earth. Mars has water in the form of ice underneath its surface. However, despite the existence of water ice, Mars's surface cannot support life. It's too cold there. There are also massive sandstorms. They can last for months and cover the whole planet.
Here we are between Mars and Jupiter. You'd think that there should be a planet here, but there isn't. Instead, we have all these rocks, and they're called asteroids. Most of the asteroids in our solar system are located in what we call the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. They're leftovers from when the solar system formed 4.5 billion years ago. The powerful gravity of Jupiter kept these little bits and pieces from sticking together to form a whole planet, so you can kind of think of them as the spare parts from long ago. We think that there are millions of asteroids in the asteroid belt, but all the asteroids combined together have less mass than our moon.
Jupiter is the largest and most massive planet in our solar system. It contains more than twice the amount of material in all the other planets combined. That's more than 300 times the mass of the Earth. When we look at Jupiter, we see only the tops of the clouds, but there's no solid surface to land on. The planet is almost entirely hydrogen and helium, the two lightest gases, but there's so much of them that they create huge pressures and high temperatures deep inside the planet. And Jupiter rotates really quickly. The planet is 11 times wider than the Earth, but it rotates more than twice as fast. One day on Jupiter is only about 10 hours long. Deep inside the planet, the hydrogen is squeezed so much by the pressure of all that gas above it that it becomes a liquid that conducts electricity. Combined with Jupiter's fast rotation, this creates huge and powerful magnetic forces. It makes a magnetic field that is the biggest structure in the solar system. Viewed from the Earth with a naked eye, Jupiter looks like a very bright star, but if your eyes could see its magnetic field, it would appear bigger than the full moon. There's also a huge storm on Jupiter called the Great Red Spot that's been there for at least a couple of 100 years. To give you an idea of its size, it's as wide as 2 Earths. Jupiter has more than 60 known moons, 4 of which are the size of the Earth's moon or larger. One of those moons, Ganymede, is larger than the planet Mercury. Jupiter is a giant planet with huge forces and huge features.
Europa is one of Jupiter's many moons. It's about the size of Earth's moon, and it's a very interesting place because we think it could contain environments with conditions that allow extraterrestrial life to exist. Europa has an icy crust with the smoothest surface of any object in the solar system. That surface is crisscrossed by dark lines that look like cracks or fractures. Now recently, NASA found evidence suggesting that plate tectonics take place in Europa's ice shell. This is the first sign of such geological activity in the solar system beyond our home planet, the Earth. Now what's amazing is that Europa is strongly expected to have a salty liquid water ocean beneath its crust, with more liquid water than all of the oceans on Earth combined. And that ocean is thought to be in contact with a rocky seafloor. You see, the moon is stretched and squeezed by Jupiter's gravity as it orbits the giant planet. And this activity could provide energy to power chemical reactions between the ocean and Europa's rocky interior. Now, because of these characteristics, scientists think that Europa might have the 3 keystones necessary for life as we know it. There could be liquid water, the chemical ingredients useful for life, and a source of energy to power the chemical reactions from which living things can benefit.
Saturn is famous for its beautiful and extensive rings. This planet is massive. It's the second largest planet after Jupiter. Saturn is so big, it could hold more than 760 Earths. The rings are made of ice, seasoned with dust and rocks, and they stretch out about 127,000 kilometers. That's about 10 times as wide as Earth. And yet, they're only 20 little bitty meters thick. Now, most of the planet is yellow. What we're basically seeing is just the tops of the ammonia clouds in its atmosphere. But down underneath that atmosphere, there's probably an ocean of liquid hydrogen. And underneath that, it's probably a core of rock and metal. Saturn has more than 60 confirmed moons, all of which are mostly made of frozen water ice. Some of the moons are big. For example, Titan is larger than both Pluto and Mercury. Scientists like me think Titan might be a possible abode for life, although any life we might discover there would be quite different from life on Earth. So far, 4 robotic spacecraft have visited the Saturn system. NASA's Cassini spacecraft will continue to send loads of data about Saturn and its moons back to Earth through late 2017, including beautiful pictures of this fascinating planet and its amazing moons.
Uranus is one of the 2 ice giants in our solar system. It was the first planet found with the aid of a telescope in 1781. It has a very, very cold atmosphere, which is made up mostly of hydrogen and helium. Now, the upper atmosphere of Uranus is made of water, ammonia, and methane ice crystals, which gives Uranus its pale blue color. Uranus rotates horizontally, and to us it looks like it's laying on its side. Astronomers believe that Uranus's rotation was caused by a giant collision with another large object. It takes Uranus 84 Earth years to go around the sun. Some parts of the planet then are in direct sunlight for 42 years in a row, and some are in darkness for that length of time. Neptune is one of 2 ice giants in our solar system. It was discovered by a mathematical prediction rather than an observation. It has only been observed once, up close, by the Voyager 2 spacecraft in 1989. Neptune has the strongest winds of all the planets in our solar system. Their speeds can be as high as 2,100 kilometers per hour, which is way faster than the speed of sound here on Earth. The winds on Neptune are 4 times stronger than any hurricane detected here on Earth. Neptune has a very thick atmosphere. It's a big gas ball, which basically means if you stand on it, you would sink. Neptune has moons, 14 of them to be exact. Its moon Triton is also quite unique. The surface of Triton is the coldest in the solar system. Pluto is a dwarf planet. Once it was a planet, but then it was reclassified in 2006. Pluto is smaller than a number of moons in our solar system, including the Earth's moon. An 11-year-old schoolgirl from Oxford, England, gave Pluto its name. The dwarf planet was visited for the first time in 2015 by the New Horizons spacecraft. Pluto consists of a lot of ices, and the rest is rock. It's in an elliptical orbit that occasionally gets closer to the Sun than the planet Neptune. Pluto has a thin atmosphere. As its surface ice thaws, it forms an atmosphere which consists of nitrogen with a little methane and carbon monoxide. When Pluto pulls further back from the Sun, some of its atmosphere freezes back to its solid state. Pluto has 5 moons. These moons are Charon, Hydra, Nix, Kerberos, and Styx. Charon has significant gravity, and that affects its orbit with Pluto. And that makes the two orbit each other like a binary star system.
Comets are frozen chunks of ice and rocks that orbit the Sun. They're leftovers from the formation of our solar system 4.5 billion years ago. As a comet comes around and around the Sun, it gets warmed up by its warmth, and that can cause the ice to melt. As the ice melts, it pulls gas and dust off the surface of the comet into what we call the tail. A comet's tail can extend for millions of miles behind the comet as it orbits the Sun. There are different kinds of comets. Some orbit the Sun every few years, and others come from the frozen outer reaches of the solar system, passing by the Sun maybe only once every few billion years. One particular comet, called Halley's Comet, orbits the Sun every 75 or 76 years, and it's so bright sometimes that it's visible to the naked eye. Who knows? Maybe you'll see it when it makes its next close approach in 2061.
The New Horizons spacecraft is on a mission to Pluto. It was launched on the 19th of January 2006 on board the Atlas V rocket with a record speed of 58,536 kilometers per hour. It is the fastest spacecraft ever launched, 100 times faster than a jetliner. It doesn't just move on its own. It also used Jupiter's gravity as a slingshot to propel it even further. Going to Pluto is almost equal to 40 trips between the Earth and the Sun. So the extra speed boost was very helpful. The communication with the spacecraft is via the X-band radio wave. When at Jupiter, the spacecraft communicates back to Earth at a rate of 38 kilobits per second. At Pluto, the communication rate will be 1 kilobit per second. The distance is also causing a long delay of more than 4.5 hours to get the signal back from Pluto. New Horizons sped past Pluto and into the Kuiper Belt, where it will examine many more icy mini-worlds.
The furthest that we've traveled so far has been to the moon, and that was quite some time ago. The last time a man landed on the moon was in 1972. And now, we are planning a human space flight all the way to Mars. But before the long journey, a lot of preparation is needed. We will need all new technologies and skills, some of which we haven't even imagined yet.
To get ready, we will practice with what is called the asteroid redirect mission. NASA will fly to an asteroid, take samples, test equipment, and eventually test new propulsion by pushing it to an orbit around the moon. So we will change a space rock into a rocket-powered satellite.
All of this will help when we need to ship a lot of equipment to Mars and operate far, far away from the help of the Earth. To be able to move large and heavy objects in space, we also need all new gear, spacesuits, rocket engines, and spacecraft like NASA's Orion spacecraft.
Our goal is in the 2030s to be ready to make the first crewed flight to Mars. Even though the spacecraft will fly at rocket speed, the journey to Mars will take many months, just like it took the Mars Curiosity rover about 9 months to get to the red planet. That's as long as a school year. Because during the journey, Mars will actually be in a totally different place on its orbit. The rocket is not aimed at Mars, but to a point where it will be months later. It's kind of like aiming an arrow at a moving target. As the trip takes such a long time, the crew will need robust communications technology, exercise facilities, and life support systems for clean water, air, and waste.
When the crew gets to Mars, there will actually already be a lot of robotic explorers there waiting for them. Already today, we have rovers and orbiters in place, taking photos and exploring the surface. Prior to the human spaceflight mission to Mars, there will be cargo sent in advance, habitation modules, equipment, and vehicles for the crew to use upon arrival. Just like on today's International Space Station, future astronauts on Mars will need a home to keep them safe during their mission. So what will the crew do on Mars? As the planet is quite similar in a cosmic sense to our Earth, we hope to find clues of former life on Mars. We will learn about how things might go if we do not protect our environment. Maybe find some new raw materials and gain data that we can use back on Earth. To help on the journey, we will learn how to grow food in space and recycle air and water. The journey to Mars will take us further than ever before. It will be the first time we have set foot on another planet. The mission is on the way already, with robotic explorers, exploration flight test, and future mission planning happening today for the eventual missions in the 2030s. So the first people on Mars might still be in school today. And we will need major advancements in science and technology, all new tools and innovations, and the people to create them. Maybe you can be one of them.